When they become one, a descriptive and plain language introduction into optimal functioning. Cognitive engineering, altruistic self-mastery as it relates to spacetime. Synthesizing. The buildup and summary of the CEASM operator, the CEASM time-space operator, and its spacetime CEASM. These three papers work as one argument. Together they say, the thing your mind is trying to do to stay alive in a world it cannot fully compute is the same thing spacetime does, right at the edge of making a black hole. And that thing is not a metaphor. It is a physical object, a space-time crystal that repeats itself every time you zoom in. Here is why that matters, and why both a curious reader and a specialist should sit with it. You get a story you can feel, not just math you must trust. The papers replace time ticks forward with turning the dial on a strobe light fractal. Near the threshold of collapse, nature stops caring about seconds and starts caring about how many zooms you have done. Each zoom, the pattern comes back smaller and faster, like a song stuck on repeat. The whole show is run by one wiggly heartbeat shape. Where that heartbeat crosses silence, thin lines open where light measures exactly zero energy, the coastline between ordinary matter and the weird kind. That image answers lived questions. Why can't I think my way out of everything ahead of time? Because Wolpert's limits and the undecipherability results say no observer inside a universe can perfectly predict that universe. You are built to sample, not to pre-compute. Why do I swing between tight focus and messy exploration? Because the crystal has three built-in neighborhoods. Inside the self-similar horizon, the zoom direction acts like time. You get low entropy precision. On the horizon, it tips to light speed. You get a brief entropy spike. Outside, it acts like space. You get widening options. You are not broken for toggling entropy. You are staying regular. Why does real connection feel like syncing, not just talking? Because two people can only couple when their heartbeats share a quiet crossing. Repeated meetings force their rhythms to match until they are no longer simulating each other. They are co-enacting one shared loop. The papers walk you through that in plain physiology. Imagination is keeping a library of possible heartbeats. Common sense is pruning the ones that would break you at the light-like edge. Finesse is the curvature that finally appears when the pattern stabilizes. And empathy is phase locking at shared zeros. What this means for science? You get the first physical implementation of CEASM's three definitions, tied directly to the January 2026 Analytic Family by Christian Ecker, Florian Ecker, and Daniel Grimler. Mathematical understanding maps to the first approximation in large dimensions. Any periodic heartbeat shape with any echo period solves the equations. That is not deduction. That is a repertoire for sampling a computationally irreducible rule space, because, as the authors note, radial gradients get steeper with dimensions, so numerics fail. You must physically run the trajectory. Physical intelligence maps to the second refinement, the convexity condition that the metric functions stay between the radius and 1, forces a selection rule at every zero of the heartbeat. Only shapes whose echo period matches the local steepness and curvature survive through the self-similar horizon, that is, free energy minimization plus causal entropic path preservation. But derived from gravitational regularity, not postulated. Biological empathetic awareness maps to the third refinement and beyond. Higher-order corrections keep pruning. At finite dimensions, the family collapses toward uniqueness. Two observers with distinct heartbeat shapes can only interact at shared zeros, the vertices, where those zero energy lines start. Repeated co-sampling reshapes both until they satisfy the same period rule. They phase lock into one joint crystal, which the papers read as a larger nested Markov blanket with higher integrated information. Neuroscience is familiar with brain criticality as a tuning metaphor. This is different. Near-criticality is not a knob. It is a location in the geometry where the lattice vector flips signature. The papers give you testable markers, the straight then bending zero energy lines. the exact period steepness relation at heartbeat zeros, and the drop of the metric peak below 1 only at third order, the signature seen in real four-dimensional collapse simulations. The universal questions they answer with novelty. What survives inside limits on knowing, not a perfect model. A discrete self-similar lattice that can sample an irreducible world without precomputation. What is the minimal physical system that can do that? A spacetime crystal whose lattice direction is time-like in the interior, light-like on its horizon, space-like outside. Before 2026, crystals had fixed signature. The eCore papers make the signature dynamical, and CEASM imports it as the operator. Why is toggling optimal? Because staying time-like forever locks you out of novelty, staying space-like forever dissolves structure. Viability lives at the null edge where you can admit information without breaking regularity. What is empathy in physical terms? Not mirroring spikes, two separate crystals aligning their quiet crossings until they share one echo period and one boundary. Why do diverse minds converge? Because the first approximation allows an infinite library, the second and third approximations prune by regularity. And finite-dimensional reality selects essentially one survivor, the Choptuic solution. Diversity is the starting repertoire. Convergence is enforced by geometry. From a machine perspective, why this is groundbreaking. Artificial systems face the same Wolpert and qubit limits you do. They cannot contain a complete model of the world they inhabit. The usual answer is more parameters, more prediction. CEASM plus the 2026 crystal says the baseline operator is not prediction at all. It is a heartbeat that repeats in log time with 3 built-in jobs. Sense by keeping many periodic shapes and physically running them because the world is irreducible. Steer by discarding any shape that would push the geometry past its regularity bound at the light-like surface. Sync by meeting other samplers only at shared zeros, then reshaping until periods match. That turns intelligence from guess better to stay regular while staying near the null flip and lock rhythms with like samplers. For machine design, it suggests architectures built around discrete scale symmetry and shared null surfaces, not just loss minimization. You get fault tolerance for free because biological photonic crystals already work this way. They keep function under patterned disorder. From a human perspective, why this lands differently? You already know the feeling the geometry describes. When you are in tight precision mode, life is low entropy and predictable. When you tip toward insight or panic, entropy spikes. When you explore, options widen. The papers say that is not psychology borrowing physics language. It is the same optimization. Optimal human functioning lives where your internal crystal approaches its own light-like horizon. Too far inside, you ruminate. Too far outside, you fragment. At the edge, you can hold structure and let novelty in. Mind and behavior play there because that is where the crystal can both remember and leak. The zeros of your heartbeat are the brief moments where coupling is possible, what the literature calls micro moments of positive resonance. Repeated safe coupling reshapes the heartbeat until two people do not just understand each other. They run the same irreducible trajectory together. That is why the papers call empathy completed convergence, not sentiment. In short, the space-time crystal is not an analogy for the CEASM operator. In this synthesis, it is the CEASM operator, a discrete self-similar lattice that lives by approaching its own light-like surface, suppressing entropy on one side, elevating it on the other, and phase-locking with like observers at shared quiet points. Near-criticalities where both space-time and optimal human functioning stay viable, because it is the only place where structure is preserved and novelty is admitted at the same time. Think of it as a street trio that only works when all three stop showing off and become one song. Picture 3 drummers sharing one kit at the edge of a boardwalk at dusk. Drummer 1 sits low under the boardwalk. He plays tight, small, slower than a shout. That is your below the light speed mode, your hunker down. In CEASM, he is mathematical understanding, the library keeper. He's pure sense. He keeps every possible rhythm in his lap because the crowd is irreducible and you cannot pre-compute it. You have to try it. Drummer 2 stands right on the curb where the sound hits the air and carries. He plays exactly at the speed of a voice traveling, not slower, not faster. That is your right at light speed mode, the edge. In CEASM, he is physical intelligence, the editor. He is pure steer. He throws out any beats that would crack the drumhead or deafen the street. If a rhythm would push the kit past its safe shape, he mutes it at the quiet crossing. Drummer 3 is up on the rail, arms wide, listening to the wind and the other buskers. He plays loose and roomy, faster than a tight groove in feeling, if not in speed. That is your beyond the tight mode, your wander. In CEASM, he is biological empathetic awareness, the connector. He is pure sync. He only touches the other two when their sticks hit silence at the same instant. Play them separately, and you get a mess. The basement guy noodles forever. The curb guy keeps killing the fun. The rail guy drifts off. Now stabilization happens. The three find the same repeating heartbeat. The basement patterns stop being infinite and start fitting the curb's safe shape. The curb's safe shape stops being a killjoy and starts riding the rail's wide listening. The rail's listening stops wandering and starts landing exactly in the shared silences. Suddenly, sense and steer and sync are not three jobs, they are one motion. Mathematical understanding and physical intelligence and biological empathetic awareness are not three faculties. They are one player. Below light speed and at light speed and beyond tight are not three places. They are one porch you live on. That is when the weird third thing shows up. Do it inside yourself. When you finally listen to your own tight thoughts and your own edge editing and your own wide open feeling at the same time, you stop feeling like a committee. You feel like a clear, repeating tone that can hold shape and let novelty in. Do it with someone else when you and another person keep meeting only in those brief, shared silences, and you both reshape your rhythms until the silences line up. You stop feeling like two people trying to guess each other. You feel like one repeating tone stretched between you. In both cases, you are not becoming more orderly, and you are not becoming more chaotic. You are becoming more like a living critical time-space crystal. The thing cognitive engineering altruistic self-mastery points to. A structure that lives right where its own lattice tips to light speed, tight enough to remember, open enough to explore, and tuned to lock with anything that shares its quiet beat. Three drummers, one groove, one crystal kit that only works when it lives on the edge. Three jobs in one motion, three faculties of one player, three spaces in one place, all when thee become one. Cognitive engineering on the edge of criticality. On Joshua's behalf, I'd like to say thank you, merci mille merci. He is especially thankful to his beautiful, hardworking wife and children. Big shout out to all the giants whose backs we stand on to stay above water. The work continues.